Hello, Theresa.
Hello, David. How are you?
I'm doing fabulous. Welcome, everybody out there in One Another Land. This is One Another Marriage with Dr. David and Theresa Mabry. All you one another couples out there, welcome to our show where we seek to strengthen marriages, relationships, so they can have greater satisfaction and fulfillment and greater impact on the world around them.
Mm-hmm. And this week, you have all celebrated Mother's Day. So happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mama's Day.
To all of our listeners who are mothers, as well as hopefully all of you reached out to your mother to say Happy Mother's Day, if your mother's still alive with us. But we have, before we dive into it, we have a very special mother that we want to say Happy Mother's Day to, and that would be our daughter-in-law, Katie.
Yep.
Because this past week, we became grandparents.
Woohoo!
For the first time.
I wish I had a sound effect right now where I could hit it and like a crowd cheering. You all out there can cheer with us, but little baby
Sedona Catherine came into the world on May 5th. She's a Cinco de Mayo baby.
That's right, she is.
And we were all surprised. We didn't know if it was going to be a boy or a girl. We didn't find out. Alex and Katie did not find out. And so we were all surprised because we had kind of been thinking that it was going to be a boy.
It's Cinco de Mayo, and she is muy bonita.
Yeah. Wonderful.
My apologies to all of our Spanish-speaking friends out there. That's the best I can do.
Well, that's better than me. All I can do is buenos tardes and buenos dias. Good morning and good afternoon.
Well, ¿cómo estás? Estoy bien.
Yeah,
I
can count.
That's
so.
right. So shout out to our Spanish-speaking one another couples out there. But special shout out, as you said, to Katie and to Alex, our son Alex, and his wife Katie, in the birth of Sedona Catherine.
Yeah, but Katie's first Mother's Day. So,
excited.
So excited. We are very excited for them, excited to become grandparents officially. And Grandpa over there is smitten.
I am over
already.
The moon. I am so excited. I can't contain myself.
I've
been waiting a long time though. First off, I love being a dad.
Yes,
I mean, being a dad is one of my favorite things in the world.
And you're a very good dad.
And thank you very much for saying so. I love being a dad, and since, my children are grown up now, I cannot see, and in our hearts, we love you, one of the couples out there who have children later in life. Mm-hmm. So we are now in our 50s, and I cannot imagine having a small child in the home on a regular basis as our child. But bless you all who do that. No judgment zone here.
Right.
But I will tell you that I am so excited about being a grandpa, and she's perfect.
She is.
She's perfect. I love her.
Yes.
I love her.
She's
so
super cute.
She is super cute. But okay, so that's the congratulations. And our big news for the week. We wanted to get it announced right at the very beginning.
Right.
So everybody out there.
We did not want to disrupt the flow the rest of the podcast.
That's right.
Because we could go on and on and on about this, but we're gonna contain ourselves
so easily. So excited, and here's the deal. There are grandparents out there right now listening, and I know what they're hearing us say, and they can hear it on our voices. They're going, "Yep, I remember that when it first started, and we love being grandparents." We have not run into a grandparent yet that does not love it.
Right.
And so a universal love of being a grandparent. So we're finally there, ladies and gentlemen.
But it's like when you first become a parent, no one can teach you what that joy and excitement is like until you actually have it happen. And that's what Alex and Katie are both experiencing right now is you're anticipating it, but then it's actually happened. And so now they are home and caring for their daughter. And so, we're just so excited. So we wanted to get that information right out of the gate. And as David told you, we are, I don't think you truly unpacked it.
No, I just introduced the show. And so
the show.
Yeah. What are we talking about today?
So for the month of May, we are going to be walking through our Love S.T.E.P material that we created. And basically, it's we are called one another marriage, and these are based upon the one another's out of the Bible, out of Scripture. And today we are going to start with love one another, and then STEP stands for serve one another, touch one another, edify or encourage one another, and have peace with one another. And we're going to be unpacking each of those over the next several weeks.
Yeah, S.T.E.P is STEP. And so just a little, so we could dive in, because you talked about a couple phrases there that may not be familiar. And so first off, in the one another's of the New Testament are this is to help bring everyone up to speed, is that in the New Testament, in Scripture, there is this one word that is that in Greek, because that's what the New Testament is originally written in, or at least how we've received it. Not to nerd out too much on everybody, but the word is allelon. So that one word, we translate it into English as one another. So allelon is one another. And that there's more of a fuller meaning to that. And I don't want to lose anyone. So if you're early on here, I'm not going to nerd the whole time. But
Nerd alert.
I do get
here
pretty
he goes. I'm going to hold you accountable here, dude.
I do get pretty excited, though, about this because it's really, we are one another marriage. And people have asked, people said, well, why are you one another marriage? Or they're just assuming like, well, it's just a catchy kind of saying.
Yeah, where does that come
or
from?
Or a catchy name.
Right.
But one another is very intentional because in the Bible, New Testament, it does talk about these one another. And every time it's mentioned, because some of the verses are super familiar to people, some people, like, love one another. Jesus said, a new command that I give to you, that you will love one another. And so that feels like a no-brainer. And that is one of them. But there are about 50 times that word alone appears in the New Testament. And so what we've done is that we've looked at all 50, and they seem to kind of go in these categories, these 5 different categories. Love one another verses. There are several verses that are serve one another verses. Then there are several touch one another verses. Then there are several encourage or edify one another verses. And then there are several verses about having peace with one another. And that's the idea behind it. Now, it means a mutually beneficial, reciprocal relationship. So one another means that when you live a one another life as a couple, both of you are going to benefit. That's the first part. Right. Mutually beneficial. Both of you are going to benefit. And the second thing, it's a reciprocal relationship, meaning that it's if you just picture a circle and that both of you are engaging, and if both of you are engaging, it's making a difference in your relationship. So today we're going to dive into when you both invest just to love, be proactively loving one another. So that's
Correct.
That's the foundation for everything we do.
Correct.
That's the introduction right there. And
there
here
you
we
go.
are. We got it under the 10-minute mark. Good job. Good job, Mabrys.
We had the granddaughter news.
We did.
Take out the granddaughter news and we would have been even shorter getting there. So
that's right. But I believe I don't want us to go too far because
I have to do my puzzle.
You have to do a puzzle.
Yes.
And why do we do puzzles? When we say this every week, we're going to maybe stop. And for new listeners, maybe this is what people need to hear. We encourage couples to touch base on a regular basis about things deeper than just business items. So a puzzle is one of those. Yeah,
and a puzzle is just strictly something that that causes you to just go, wonder why that is, or why does that happen? It just it's a snapshot into your partner's brain. We encourage you not to have puzzles about each other, though. Okay, so you shouldn't.
That's another tool that you're going to use.
Because that can just start conflict. So we don't want that. These puzzles are strictly about observations within your daily life, around the world, those that you encounter, stuff like that. So anyway, David and I take turns. It is my turn this week to have the puzzle.
What is your puzzle for the week?
Well, my puzzle has to center around Starbucks. Okay. So here's my puzzle, and it's a twofold. It's a two-parter. So I enjoy a Starbucks, right? Every now and then I like to get a Starbucks drink. So
they are not a sponsor, by the way.
They are not a sponsor. Oh, good Lord. So we're just going to back up 2 days ago because it was Mother's Day. And so I treated myself to a Starbucks drink. I chose a drink that I
Treat yourself.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Parks and Rec.
Tommy,
Parks and Rec, shout
Tommy
out.
and what's her name?
Tommy Haverford.
Tommy Haverford. Treat
so,
yourself.
And Donna, Tommy and Donna on
That's
Parks
right.
and Rec.
Love
So, so I wanted to get a Starbucks drink. I typically do not get the large size, so I got a venti, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the puzzle is, why is it that the cup is not all the way full with the drink, right? I mean, this is a costly drink. And yes, it is my choice to go there to choose to pay the money, but I'm also expecting that, and my drink was a good 1.5 inches to almost 2 inches lower than the top rim of the cup. Of course, you don't realize this until you are almost all the way to your house, because like, it's not like I take the lid off immediately as soon as they give it to me. It's hot. It was a hot drink. So that's a puzzle.
That is a puzzle.
That is a puzzle.
And it's a good puzzle.
And I understand from working there was a short time where I worked at Panera, and when we made drinks, you made the drink according to the directions. So many ounces of milk, so many ounces of, so many pumps of syrup, so many this, blah, blah, blah. So I get that. I understand. But if you're going to offer the venti size, certainly your fluid ounces should accommodate for that, right?
That's a valid point. That's a good puzzle, because it's like
puzzle.
For overpriced coffee.
Exactly.
Or at least it feels like overpriced,
No, it is for this one. So anyway, it was a little bit of a bummer, and that's not the first time it's happened. You know what I mean? But anyway, the second puzzle to go along with Starbucks. Okay.
This is a twofer today.
What's up with napkins? What's up with napkins? Like, if you're gonna get a piece of a banana nut bread or something like that, why do they just give you the bag with it? I mean, it's obvious you're in the drive-thru. It's obvious you're going to eat it right there.
Yeah.
Why do we have to ask for a napkin? Okay. Now I'm also not saying that I need to have 10, right?
Yes.
So I don't need to have so many napkins that I don't. Yeah. But typically, if you have an extra napkin, you throw it in the glove compartment, right, in the car. But this has been going on for a while too. Yeah. This has been for over a year, maybe even more, that I've noticed this, that sometimes I go through and I get a protein box, right? I mean, I'll get the egg, I have the cheese, I have the apple, I have the fruit, I have what? Can you not just give me a napkin? Don't you think that my hands are going to get just a little bit?
And whereas like McDonald's, although we don't go there hardly anymore, but
that's
McDonald's,
where you would get 10.
They're like, hey, take the whole pack of napkins that we have here. They don't care.
All you could order might be just like an apple pie or something, and you'll
Starbucks,
have 10 napkins.
Yeah, Starbucks is thinking, why do you hate the earth?
Why do you hate the earth? Exactly.
Yeah.
And I get it. So I understand. So puzzle number 1, fill my cup to the top. Puzzle number 2, give me a freaking napkin with a banana nut bread or a pumpkin loaf. Just one.
Just one. Yeah,
just
that's
one.
right.
That's
you
all.
You could use
just
a napkin
one.
as you're traveling. That's right.
I don't know.
And yeah, that's right. And so.
And it happens at all of them. At first you think, oh no, it's just your local one, and it's just their rule in the store. But no, it happens everywhere. And usually when you ask, they're very nice about giving one to you. But it's almost like a light bulb moment where they go, oh yeah. And I'm like, seriously?
There's a memo that went out. There's a memo that for sure went to all the Starbucks.
There you go. So
but
that's there you go.
This
my
is
puzzles.
the funny thing. I could just picture them, you going through and you have to ask for a napkin. You ask for a napkin, and all of a sudden they look at you and go, okay, and they pull a napkin out and they just rip it in half and hand you half, because they're trying to
conserve.
We're trying to conserve.
We're conserving.
We don't hate the earth.
There's a lot of other ways we could conserve besides just a napkin.
Do you not know there's global warming and napkins from Starbucks are contributing to it?
Well, they're made out of recycled product.
They are made out of recycled.
That's what it says on the napkin.
That's a good puzzle, honey.
So anyway, people, don't hate us out there. I know, I'm not saying that I'm anti getting a Starbucks, but that's just a recent puzzle. Puzzles. There you go. That's it.
That's a good one.
All right.
That's a good puzzle.
So
Thanks for sharing that
You're
with me,
welcome.
hon.
You're welcome.
I'm
snapshot into Teresa's brain over the last 2 days.
It is, and I concur with you, and also just to.
And I've held on to that because it happened on Sunday and we were together.
You have,
but I've held on to that, waiting till we could present this podcast. So there you go.
And we encourage one another, couples out there, that when you do a puzzle with one another, that you don't have to explain it out. You don't have to like my temptation right now. It could be to kind of solve or try to whatever, but it's not really a temptation because I'm kind of like.
I know you've been puzzled by it as well.
Oh yeah, I've learned to accept the puzzles and actually enjoy them a little bit, and so
I think I gave you humor today. You laughed multiple times.
Theresa Mabry, you make me laugh. So
well, I've been doing that since 1989, sir.
Making David laugh since 1989.
I know.
Yeah, so there you go. That's a good puzzle. Okay, folks. Make sure you're talking with one another beyond just the business items. And so, shall we dive into this?
We shall.
One other. I'll be the one to be a taskmaster and keep us going.
Let's get back to the nerd stuff now. Okay.
That's right. You know what? Can I just share this first before we go in?
Sure.
This is something we came up with years ago. We've done it since 2008.
Yes.
Really, it's been written.
Yes.
This is something that I felt drawn to even back in the 90s, so it's been a while. The idea of a one another concept and the one another's of the New Testament. I've loved those scriptures and the teaching and the idea because it's so regular. But I would say that this is like I said, it's foundational for what we do. But I really love this idea for couples. I love when we keep in mind the idea to be proactively engaging in the relationship in such a way that it is mutually beneficial and reciprocal in nature, that it's coming back, and also so we can kind of think through major categories of, like Love S.T.E.P altogether, major categories, so that we can grow. I had this great conversation within the last couple weeks with one of our one another couples, spouses, and she had shared with me about how proactive they are in their marriage, and they always have been. Even after the wedding date, they would still go see marriage counseling, marriage coaching, or whatever to proactively. And I was so proud of them for doing that. And many of you out there are doing that, and many of you may not be doing that. But the idea that marriage is hard sometimes.
Right.
Marriage is not always cookie cutter, right? It's
absolutely.
And so
we can't compare with others and things. So
that's right. But to hear one of our one another couples out there that are proactive, way before they found us, of course.
Sure.
But good on them, and also want to encourage everyone. Love S.T.E.P is a proactive way of engaging your marriage, so that you can be, as we always say, strengthened for greater satisfaction and fulfillment and greater impact on the world around you.
Right.
So that's my setup and sales pitch, I guess you could say, why I love this material so much and love this idea and concept that we can chase after.
All right. Thank you, Dr. David Mabry. So,
thank you for sharing, Doctor. Do you want to go back to puzzles? That one.
No.
Let's go on the lighter side of things a little bit.
No. All right. So let's jump in here to love one another.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the big question right at the beginning is, does your marriage have leverage? Leverage. So what's the idea? Let's unpack the idea of leverage. What's that mean?
Well, yeah. So does your marriage have leverage in the relationship? What are the levels of engagement that you have with each other? And do you have the leverage needed in order to be fully engaged? And one of the ways that we unpack that is we kind of talk about a fulcrum and a lever, and how they are used to then have complete leverage within the marriage.
And you picture like a car jack is the most common fulcrum and lever.
Right.
Right. It's the most
Right.
common, and although it doesn't look traditional, like what we picture is somebody with a long pole or rod
Mm-hmm.
and a small rock. So the pole being the lever, and the fulcrum being the rock,
Mm-hmm.
and then it being wedged underneath a large rock. And so that individual can lift, even the weakest of individuals can lift something so much heavier.
Mm-hmm.
Car jack is the perfect example, because the weakest driver, get a flat tire, put the jack underneath it, and you can crank up the car. You can lift the car because you have the device, which is a fulcrum and lever
Mm-hmm.
for that. And what happens is that marriages are overwhelmed with the weight of the relationship, of the challenges of the relationship, of the daily working through the relationship. And they need to carry this big rock called marriage,
Right.
which is not a burdensome rock always.
No,
Sometimes
no.
it is. Sometimes it's difficult, but it's just hey, let's admit that this is not natural and easy always.
Right.
So it's getting the right leverage to have greater fulfillment and impact on the world around you in your relationship. So
Mm-hmm.
it's placing the fulcrum and lever in the right place. And if you don't place it properly, it's foolish. I mean, you just picture moving that thing at a different place, or not even having a good fulcrum, not having that little rock that's placed properly. I mean, you wouldn't throw a car jack just underneath the car and it's like, okay, car, lift.
Yeah, lift.
You need to set it up properly.
Right.
Then that's what we talk about, right? We talk
Right.
about setting it up properly, and when
Right.
it's improper, it even does damage.
It can do
It can
damage.
do damage.
Right. And those are the different levels that we discuss with this material is, if you have the fulcrum and the lever separate from each other, well, you're not going to be able to lift anything. First of all, there is no leverage. I mean, you're just going to have two objects separated from each other. And when spouses or partners, when they're like that, then that's where each one is just for themselves. That's what we communicate. And then if you have the fulcrum on top of the lever, that is not going to be beneficial in any way to help you lift anything. And so that's where there's no action. There's a hearing, but not listening. And then we have the fulcrum at the wrong end of the lever. So we want to be able to lift something, but we're placing the fulcrum at the incorrect end, and we're going to snap off our lever if it's not placed correctly. And that's where each one is doing, and the voice of the other person is ignored or neglected, or our voice is the only one we're hearing. And then finally, we have the fulcrum and the lever positioned correctly so that we can provide leverage, so that we can work through our marriage. Like David said, marriage is hard, but also beneficial. Doesn't mean it's going to be hard all the time, but you need to have good leverage in your marriage. That is that one another living, where both people are listening and responding to each other, hearing each other's voices, and acting as a team, as a unit.
And we've had those times, right, where we've had it not positioned correctly, the fulcrum and the lever, and usually some of the most common that I think of is like, well, when young children are around, so just good distractions, but they're still distractions.
Sure.
I think about major transitions, major trauma or challenges that, like loss of a parent or job or whatever. So I think about, and for us, although I feel like we've always had good leverage, there have been times that we've kind of been like, I loved what this one friend of ours described one time. He just said, you know what, we were actually a group of guys were talking, and his husband said, you know what, I just feel like my wife and I have just been going sideways for this last couple weeks. And I love that kind of picture, that way of describing it. It's like, I'm going sideways. And there'll be times that you're going kind of sideways from one another.
Right.
And not not having leverage,
Right.
and you're not hearing one another's voices as you described.
Mm-hmm.
You're not hearing one another's voices. You're not listening, or you're kind of doing your own thing, ignoring.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess there may be levels um, of more of a challenge and growing away. So
Sure.
there's like sometimes it can be like just for a day. You're kind of like it's
Yeah.
just a busyness of the day. We're
Right.
just going sideways. We're not connecting
Right.
with one another very well. And even when we do talk, it's kind of like button heads. And then it
Mm-hmm.
can go from there all the way to, for the last year,
Mm-hmm.
we
Right.
have been drifting apart.
Right.
And I'm sure there's some folks out there feel like they've been drifting apart.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so the challenge then is, how do you get that leverage back, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how do we get back to engaging with one another? And one of the things that we talk about with couples and in our material here is, there are 3 things that you need to have greater fulfillment in your marriage, and that is to have a physical closeness.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to be not just sharing space, but you need to be like having conversation with each other where you're sitting together, you're looking at each other, you're actually physically close with that person, being able to be emotionally open.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third thing is to be a place of safety, right?
Mm.
And so those 3 things are great. It's the trifecta. That's what you need,
Trifecta.
right? In order to be able to hear each other better and to listen, and you have to set aside your own personal agenda, your own personal defense, your own personal, like, we put the walls up or the boundary or different things, but and that's where marriage, it is hard. It's
Mm-hmm.
not always going to be easy, and there are going to be those moments of going sideways, but going sideways is okay. We also don't want to tell couples like, you should never go sideways. You're going to go sideways
you're
at
going
times.
to.
You're going to, because you're going to just have a rough day.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have a major impact, like David shared, earlier, a loss of something of some sort. If children do enter into the relationship, they can be the distraction or the cause for sometimes going sideways in your relationship and things like that. But ultimately, it's got to come back to the us-ness. It's got to come back to this trifecta of having these 3 things going on, so that the person that you are married to is the one who's the team with you. You're the fulcrum and the lever working together. You've got the leverage going on in the relationship, and you're able to listen to each other and understand what your partner's saying.
I think we've gotten better at this over the years, as far as communicating when we are personally feeling a little off for the day,
Yeah.
right? And like, because I was going to say is that what couples need to really capture is to be able to clearly communicate with their partners when they're feeling a little off, when they personally are feeling a little sideways. Right. And then if you can clearly share that with your spouse and not make excuses or to justify or to act out in a harsh way, but give permission to your partner to be having a bad day.
Mm-hmm.
And
right.
so
everybody's going to have a bad day at some point.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you're right. I think we have gotten better at voicing that. I think that comes with time, though, where you feel like I feel like if I tell you that now, that you're going to be okay. You're going to understand, and that you also understand you don't have to fix it for me always.
Yes,
right?
That's an important lesson.
And that I don't always have to fix it for you, but predominantly with men want to fix it. They want to figure it out, and so sometimes
clean you up in the mud puddle, as
right.
we've talked before.
And so sometimes, as we've gotten better at sharing it with each other, it also allows, like, if you share it with me, then I know that I can say, is there anything you need from me? And you can let me know if there is or not. But at the same time, I don't have to worry about, okay, like David just needs space today, or he just, it's okay if maybe he wants to go do his own thing or something like that. I think the main thing we want to make sure we tack on here, though, is if you feel yourself going sideways and you're asking for every day, or even like if it's becoming, like a major
just
thing.
who I am, you need to accept me.
Right.
Yeah.
Then that's where we would say to couples, like, okay, now we're talking maybe something deeper is going on, and now we may need to enlist some outside help.
Make sure that it's, yes, great point. Being sure that we're clear that this is like you're having a bad day, or
Right.
even I would say even a bad week or whatever.
Yeah, you can
it's
have
like
a bad week.
saying but permission
if you have
to
a
be
bad year, though.
bad year is a problem. but if you have permission to say, where I love how you set that up, is like not have to be fixed, and also not feeling like, which I think it's probably a fixing thing too, feeling like it's like poking and prodding so much. It's like, okay, I'm not having a good day, but don't stop poking and prodding.
Poking.
I don't need a counselor right now.
Right.
I don't need a coach. But I love the idea of saying, what do you need from me right now?
Right.
What would be most helpful? And then accepting that answer, because the most helpful may be, hey,
Leave
you know
me
what?
alone.
Can I just empty the emotional jug, and we'll cover that at a later episode, I'm sure.
Right.
But just be able to empty, or be able to share freely,
Right.
without judgment of like, because I need to get this off my chest, and it may not be about your partner, but it may be just about the situation and why you're feeling. But then other times, it would be important to be able to just say, no, I really just need to be alone, or I need to just kind of be in myself for a little bit. I need to kind of some self-help, kind of self-soothing, or whatever it may
Right.
be, whatever you want to call it. But the idea of giving permission to your partner to have a sideways day and not try to, but when you have this, exactly what you were saying before, Theresa Mabry, is that having so it doesn't affect the relationship so harshly. Emotional openness, place of safety, physical closeness. But when that's disrupted, giving permission to get a little break, to have a little healing, to have to be able to pull away, and then coming back so that you can contribute towards one another's wellness and love and
Right.
fulfillment, and as a couple overall. And so,
Right.
yeah, that's an excellent point.
Okay.
I would add to your point with the trilogy. What'd you call it?
Trifecta.
The trifecta. That's a new one on me. The trifecta is that we'd also encourage folks it's a safer communication. It's a safer place when you watch your nonverbals. That could be negative.
Sure.
And when one watches their nonverbals, I say you. It's not like I'm telling you, Theresa, that you need to watch.
I'm giving you a nonverbal right now. No, I'm not. I'm really not. I'm just
Teresa's feeling a little
joking. Feeling a little snarky over here
today. But it's seriously, so the
no, but that's
not
true.
eye rolling, not pulling away, not
crossing the arms, defensive posture,
kind of giving the stink face or whatever it is,
an extreme sigh.
Trying to make your
that.
point through your nonverbals.
Right.
That's not safe.
Right.
That's not allowing your partner to be emotionally open.
Right.
So, and that's really a emotionally maturing thing.
Absolutely.
Is that we'd want to encourage folks to continue to strive to being more relationally and emotionally mature, where you're kind of looking out for one another. And once again, when you're married, you are one. So every time you do some of those things that are unhealthy and hurtful, or even if they're minor, it's kind of like you're hurting yourself, because when you hurt that relationship, you hurt yourself.
Absolutely.
So working hard so that your partner's voice can be heard,
right,
clearly,
right,
going forward.
All right, so let's recap what we just kind of went through there. So we're talking about a one another marriage, right? So it's a mutually beneficial, reciprocal relationship. It's a relationship that needs to have leverage. And that's where we talked about the fulcrum and the lever. And we talked about making sure that your fulcrum and lever are engaged in the correct way so that it provides that leverage for you to do the hard work that comes with being in marriage. You need to have the fulcrum and lever in the sweet spot, right? And then we talked about making sure you have the trifecta of those three things: a physical closeness, an emotional openness, a place of safety. And as well as being able to be honest with each other if you feel yourself going sideways at certain times, right? But also being open to the fact that you just can't be sideways for most of the time, right? So if you find yourself doing that, then you do need to be open to possibly considering some outside help, which speaks into the health and vitality of your relationships. So that's the beginning of what our one another material covers, and now we're stepping into the actual love. So the love step is what we call it. So this is the love one another, and talking about, how do we show that? How do we go with that? And I'm sorry, I just, in my brain, because I work with children primarily for my day job, but we have this song, and it's love one another. And I just keep singing.
Are you going to sing?
I don't know. It's just going through my brain.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, and I can see the whole like little video thing that we have and whatever. So, but it's love one another.
Can
love
you see
one another and be kind.
What's that guy's name? Is this one of those videos?
No, it is not. It's not him. It's not Jack Hartman.
Jack Hartman.
No, this isn't
billions of views for that man.
Yeah.
And they're mostly under 5.
Yeah.
So okay, so your song.
Love one another and be kind. Be kind to each other. There you go.
Great job.
Love one another and be kind.
I don't know that song will kind of become an earworm for folks that are listening. They'll be like,
it won't.
Yeah.
It totally is just my work. But anyway, because
except for those that have preschoolers out there.
I know.
That are be like, oh yeah, Theresa Mabry, I know that.
So
I know that song.
So anyway,
that's funny.
Love one another.
Well, let me do this.
Yeah.
It's not time necessarily for the verse of the day, but you know what? Let's just go ahead and jump to that.
Do it.
I'm going to give, because the verse of the day,
yeah,
I want to read some of the verses.
Right.
I want to read some of the verses that go with love one another.
Absolutely.
So actually the verse of the day is actually going to be multiple verses, and you all, maybe this podcast will be just a good encouragement from the Bible. And if you're listening and you're not really into the Bible, maybe you don't have a church background or a faith-based background, we want to encourage you. We'd always encourage you to kind of look in that direction. We find a great amount of encouragement and source of strength and life through our faith, and we'd encourage you to do the same. But if you aren't out there, you could still gain great wisdom from the Bible. And now,
right.
And I know many of our one another couples though are have a faith background, and you connect with Scripture, and so this will be encouraging to you as well. And so the first one would be our foundational verse, which we would out of the book of John, chapter 13, verses 34 and 35. Jesus is speaking here, and he says, "A new command I give to you, love one another, as I have loved you, so you must love one another.
Mm-hmm.
By this, all people will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another." And remember, every time you hear that one another, those two words, that is that Greek word allalon, and it's a mutually beneficial reciprocal relationship. He's telling his disciples to have this kind of a relationship,
mm-hmm.
one with another, and that when you do this, they'll know that you are a follower of his.
Mm-hmm.
And so for our faith-based friends out there, especially your marriage, when you have this one another marriage, people will know that you are disciples of his. And so another one is out of Romans 12:10, and it says, "Be devoted to one another in brotherly love." And that brotherly love, actually, it's funny, it's the same word that's used for Philadelphia, because Philadelphia is the city of
brotherly
love. So it's philios is that word. Once again, I'll try hard not to nerd out on everyone. But that's the same word. The philios word is used for brotherly love there. Be devoted to one another, and even brotherly love. Honor one another above yourselves. Romans 12:10. Do you want to do Romans 13:8?
Sure, there it is. Let no debt remain outstanding, except the continuing debt to love one another. For he who loves his fellow man has fulfilled the law.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. And then we'll do Romans 15:7, and it says, "Accept one another then, just as Christ accepted you, in order to bring praise to God.
Mm-hmm.
1 Peter 1:22 says,
now that you have purified yourselves by obeying the truth, so that you have sincere love for your brothers, love one another deeply from the heart.
Yeah, 1 John 3:11 says, this is the message you have heard from the beginning. We should love one another.
You want me to keep going?
Yeah, let's do it.
1 John 3:23 says, and this is his command, to believe in the name of his Son, Jesus Christ, and to love one another as he commanded us.
And then staying in 1 John, once again in the New Testament, chapter 4, verse 7, it says, dear friends, let us love one another, for love comes from God. Everyone who loves has been born of God and knows God. And he goes on later in that chapter in verses 11 and 12. He says, dear friends, once again, dear friends. And that word, that's really, dear friends is one way to say it, but beloved friends. He has this great love when he's sharing these verses, these words of wisdom. He says, since God so loved us, we also ought to love one another. No one has ever seen God, but if we, face to face, meaning until we get to heaven, but if we love one another, God lives in us and his love is made complete in us. What a great promise for marriages. And one more verse out of 2 John 1:5 is our final one another, or our love one another verse would be what?
And now, dear lady, I am not writing you a new command, but one we have had from the beginning. I ask that we love one another. 2 John 1:5.
There you go. We hope that even reading through these verses today, it's an encouragement to you and your marriage, and just that wisdom, and that we just really would encourage you to turn to God and just seek him in your marriage. And like I said, even if you don't have a faith-based background, this is maybe an opportunity to do so. And once again, one another marriage, it really is biblically and faith-based in what we do, but we really want to have those doors open for all couples to be able to gain the wisdom and growth and understanding, because we really want all couples to be strengthened for greater fulfillment and impact on the world around them.
Mm-hmm. So there is our love one another, and just reminding you again about how to have that leverage within your relationship, how to be open in your relationship, how to be able to share on a deeper level. Puzzles is one way to do that, but another way is to just, sitting down and letting your partner know kind of what's going on with you a little bit, asking the other person, is there anything I can help with, or what do you need from me, or stuff like that. Just letting people in. And I know that as we go through this material over the next several weeks, we're probably going to end with our Love Step goals,
Yes.
and probably teaching that as well. And that is a connecting tool way to actually have love for each other.
And the great way to start that off, and that may not make sense to you all right now, but listen to the podcast over the next few weeks, because we're going to teach you a tool called Love Step Goals. The first thing, that one of the best ways to kind of get you kind of jump started with that is every day find an opportunity just to tell each other you love them. Just tell your partner that you love them, and don't say, well, I've already shared it, and if I change my mind, I'll let them know. But I mean, your partner needs to hear it, needs to know it. And go back and listen to the 5 Love Languages podcast if you want some more practical ways to tap into that. And the final practical piece is, as you were reminding everybody out there, is that give permission, give patience, work as a team so that you can have this open communication, give opportunity for being sideways. That's expressing great love with one another.
Right. So we are going to be asking you to come back and join us next week, because next week we're going to talk about the S. It's an acronym, STEP, right? So we're going to be talking about serve one another and sharing with you next week on that.
We love the serve one another. That one's fun. Because that's right. So it's a 5-part series, and part 2 will be, if you want to say parts, will be next week's podcast, and serve one another. Right. Thank you all for joining us this week.
Yes, we've enjoyed it, and we promise we won't talk your ear off about our new grandbaby so much. But
we are so excited, aren't we?
So, all right.
Hey, Thanks for joining us.
All right. Bye-bye.